There's always something so fun about trying different challenges in the Gran Turismo series. Because there's hundreds upon thousands of cars to play with, each GT mode run is different to the next. Gran Turismo 2 has over 600 cars on offer. Some are better than others, but the real fun comes out of trying cars you'd normally brush aside. So I've already beaten the game without Japanese cars, and I've beaten the game with only yellow cars. So I decided, what's next in the Gran Turismo 2 Rainbow? Ahoy there! The time has come for the annual Gran Turismo 2 Challenge Run. Before starting, I ran a poll with the audience, and the winning result was to do another monochromatic challenge, running away with 47% of the vote. Since I've already done the color yellow, I picked a bunch of different colors and brought back the Wheel of Fate. Red it is. This time, we'll attempt to beat GT2 with only red cars. This'll be a real treat since red's my favorite color. So the rules for this challenge are similar to last time. I can only buy cars in the color red, or in shades of red. There's no country restrictions on what cars I can or cannot buy. Rally events are now optional because there's one certain monster that we now have access to. And the ultimate end goal is to beat all special events and Gran Turismo League events up to Gran Turismo World League. This run will be using the Project A-Spec mod, this being the 1.2 release that came out at the end of January 2025. And I won't be counting days like I have in the last two documented runs because time is irrelevant. Here we go! Before starting the challenge, I used a screenshot of the Suzuki Carry to tease everyone about the challenge. This K-Van was one of the new cars added to the A-Spec mod in all of its 32 horsepower glory. Despite being a bargain at over 2,000 credits, it suffered from the same issues I had with the Daihatsu Midget 2 at the start of my yellow car challenge. Too weak and not enough gears. This led to a reset where I instead chose the 1993 Toyota Supra Turbo. First thing I did was buy a new suspension and a racing chip. Then it was time for its baptism via Tahiti Road. Wait, where's the rubber banding? This is some late game nonsense and it's only the first race! Hopping over to Clubman Cup, okay, that's more what I expected. A purple Lotus Elise giving me trouble. What didn't give me trouble was the new Fiat 124, which was probably spending too much time thinking when in Rome. In a grid with a Toyota, 3 Lotuses, and 2 Fiats, Supra Mayro was the winner. Back to Sunday Cup, it was back to the expected rubber banding with the 5 other Japanese cars. It was a much closer race where my biggest opponent was friction. My plan with Supra Mayro is not to upgrade it too much so that it's eligible for FR Challenge. But in order to get to FR Challenge, you know what that means. Time to get licensed! Now, I know what you're thinking. No one wants to see license tests. Yeah, I don't want to either. But license tests in Gran Turismo are a necessary evil, so you're gonna see license tests, and you're gonna like it. Thankfully not for very long, because, you know, been there, done that. After manhandling Ford Cougars, B license is ours, and we move on to A license. More stop-start tests in the rare time I use manual transmission, and fighting oversteer and understeer, bada bing, bada boom. A license is ours. Now, it's time to go race for real. But not before a quick pit stop. After refreshing myself on the T-Kanji method of car tuning, it was off to Clubman Stage Route 5 for FR Race 1. And, no, this is not a replay, I'm actually controlling this. So, this is not a bug with the mod, this is because I had the extra camera angles and races cheat enabled in Duckstation. I had completely forgotten I enabled it and thought it was a bug with A-Spec. Anyway, Supra Mayro ran away from an SLK and a Caterham 21, also new to the mod. Oh, so now I get the yellow SIL 80. You're about a year too late. With the money from the SIL 80, I took a moment to decide what the official wheel of this challenge would be. After a lot of deliberation, I decided the first Bridgestone wheel would be the official wheel of the red car challenge. I do like black rims, but in GT2 they're really hard to see. Another tune-up, and it was off to Red Rock to finish Sunday Cup. I think I'm paranoid, but the PT Spider is actually good here. No, I wasn't spooked by the PT Spider at the end of the race, I'm just suffering from understeer and skill issues. Sunday Cup is done, and so Clubman Cup is next on the list. Miles away from Eiger Nordwand, the Venturi Atlantique 300 bi-turbo must have heard me say it was a waste of money by beating me on the final straight. Two can play at this game. With an upgraded snail under the hood, Supra Mayro battled alongside the green Lugi Antique, trading blows on the first set of corners. And just like Lugi, the green Venturi ended up as the bridesmaid and not the bride. I wanted to start saving up for my real first car, so I went back to FR Challenge 1 to either double my money or get a free Siladian red. Now, it did not come back in red, but that's a nice purple. You know, I've been thinking big for my next car, but why not think smaller? I set off to find a car that could handle 246 horsepower events, and I think this Subaru Impreza WRX wagon will do the trick. I knew that Subaru Boxer engines had a distinct buzz to them, but in GT2 this WRX sounds like a chainsaw. Welcome to the crew, Paul Bunyan. I said Bunyan, not Phoenix. Whatever. The Compact Car Cup cars are all garbage, but Jeff's brother Gary joined the garage in the correct color. I'll be hanging on to this, even though the Vitz is a joke. Turn 1 Seattle short. Could have been worse. The Renault Clio in Platinum White is exiled from the garage before going to tune up Paul Bunyan. Jumping out of sequence, it's Historic Car Trophy 1 in Tahiti. Yes, I know this is cheating, but it's still GT2 where most restrictions don't matter. The Lancia Stratos is the biggest threat, and the Fiat 124 is the biggest letdown, even being passed by the quote-unquote inferior Fiat 500R. Guys, I'm here too! Guys? Hello? In the A-Spec mod, Historic 1's prize car is the Dome Zero prototype, worth a cool $125K. Progression has been broken once again. To further break progression, it was off to Laguna Seca for US Nationals 1. Paul Bunyan could benefit from some more legitimate tuning, like with stickier tires and another bump in power, so I might upgrade the WRX later. US Nationals 1 actually has a prize car now, and it's the GM EV1. GM boldly predicted the future to be electric, but chickened out and crushed all of them. Since I can't race in this, and I was really curious to try it out, I went to the test course to sate my curiosity before sending it to meet its maker. It's making no sound. Oh, wait, there's noise. It tops out at 81 miles per hour and only has one gear. So long, EV1. You were too far ahead of your time. With Paul Bunyan beefed up to 295 horsepower, we went to Autumn Ring. Paul Bunyan cuts the other compacts down to size, and then chops down the Volkswagen Lupa. Oh, wait a minute, no. The Mini Cooper R50. Yeah, that's different from vanilla. Back to Rome, and good news, he's not there. Bad news, the Toyota 2000 GT and Mazda RX 500 could have easily taken the place of the Ford GT40. They kept up for most of the race, building a sizable gap between the last three racers. Paul Bunyan pulled through in the end, rewarding us with a red Lotus Europa. At least, I think it looks red enough. Still in Rome to finish Clubman Cup, problems presented themselves when I was greeted with a trifecta of twin Ferrari 355s and a TVR Chimera. They had me beat in straight line speed, but I say drive smarter and not harder. Still no Clubman Cup prizes, so it was time to give it a rest and do the other license tests next time. So to summarize the events that happened so far, the Suzuki Carry is not a good starter car, the Toyota Supra Turbo 93 is decent value, sequence can still be broken in A-Spec, Jeff has a brother named Gary, the EV1 is very unique, the WRX wagon sounds like a chainsaw, and that Luigi will always be second fiddle to Mario. With progression borked once again, it was time to grab the rest of the licenses. After enrolling in a D-Rights course and taming the PTSD Camaro, we get International C license in less than 7 minutes. International B was a bit harder with the slalom tests. The low-speed one gave me some trouble, but it's still easy to get gold on the rally tests. International B acquired, and now on to International A. The high-speed corner tests had me wishing I could just delete understeer, but you can't stop physics. Stylish and stupidly easy rally tests plus a trip up and down Pikes Peak equals International A license and all the licenses needed to finish the game. Armed with all the necessary licenses, I decided to take on Muscle Car Cup. This was the perfect excuse to try out the C5 Corvette, which is also new to the mod. Applying the gear trick just made the Corvette bog down, so I spent some time testing out different gear configurations. The Little Red Corvette was now in a much more usable state and won at Seattle Short. The PT Spider can't stay, so it's back to the full-fat Seattle circuit. The Little Red Corvette smokes 'em. Baby, you're much too fast. And we get the Shelby Cobra in white. Finishing up at Laguna Seca, there's a traffic jam on lap 1, but the Corvette breaks free and shows off its grip. Muscle Car Cup is done, and we bid farewell to the Chrysler Phantom. You need a love that's gonna last. With the Corvette tuned up for 394 horsepower races, it was off to Grindelwald again to finish up Historic Car Trophy. The Little Red Corvette barely breaks a sweat even in the presence of the Dome Zero, Lancia Stratos, and Toyota 2000 GT. Speaking of the Stratos, it got moved from one of the endurance events to here since I think in vanilla it was one of the tuned Hondas. But this Stratos is the wrong color. Next, I took the Corvette to Red Rock for Grand Touring Car Race 1. All the other cars in the grid were red, except for the one Nissan Skyline in black. After breezing through the race, the orange Daishin Silvia was booted for an additional cash profit. Then we booked it to Laguna Seca for Pure Sports Car Cup 1. The Corkscrew tries to take a bite out of me on lap 2, but I keep the Little Red Corvette steady and finish first. I would have loved to use the Tom's Angel T01, but it gave me the wrong color. It didn't even come in this shade of silver because it was a one-off prototype. Now, I had a couple of options. I could either A, cheese the game with 80s Cup, or B, find a good front-wheel drive platform to tackle FF Challenge. I decided to do the latter, but I didn't want to blow all my money on a front-wheel drive car since there was a certain red MR car I could afford. After careful consideration, I picked a car that Wipeout composer Cold Storage, aka Tim Wright, used to own and started blasting left field in my mind. After a tune-up, it was back to the familiar Tahiti Road. I've always kinda liked how the Fiat Coupe looks, with its taillight arrangement and smooth wedge shape. It also handles pretty well for a front-wheel drive car tuned for 295 horsepower. Though it's probably getting an upgrade after this race. The Mugen Accord in its weird shade of green is sold off and a larger turbo is bolted to the coupe. The coupe can really fly now, as demonstrated on the other front-wheelers at midfield. It really hauls ass. We sell the Tom's T111 as it only comes in yellow, then give the coupe one last tune-up for Trial Mountain. Tracks like Trial Mountain can make understeer more obvious, especially in cars of the 394 horsepower power level. Then again, the more power a front-wheel drive car has, the more understeer there is. But because this is Trial Mountain, that means there's fun to be had in cutting the last corner. Whee! We're granted the Mugen Prelude Type S, and even if I don't use it, I'll keep it, just in case. So, to summarize, slalom tests gave me trouble. The C5 Corvette is a fantastic platform, it's much easier to obtain the Lancia Stratos in the mod, and the Fiat Coupe is underrated. But now, I have a certain MR car on my mind. It's something Yu Suzuki would be proud of. It was time to take the new Ferrari 355 F1 Berlinetta for a spin. I wanted to save some money and not fully upgrade it, so I got it close to the 394 horsepower limit and sent it to cheese the game at 80s Cup Race 5. Mamma mia! She handles like a dream! And the model created is fantastic. It's even more beautiful in the signature Rosso Corsa red. It's a real treat to drive one of my favorite 90s sports cars in Gran Turismo 2. My only gripe is that you can't make it into an F355 challenge via racing modification. God damn it! Why do I always get the Skyline silhouette in blue? I'm taking a mulligan. Still no luck. Oh well, moving on. We jump over to MR Challenge at High Speed Ring. While my go-to for this series has always been the Venturi Atlantique, aka the French Ferrari, I have access to the genuine article, and so does the AI. But at an upgraded 490 horsepower, she was even faster around the track and leagues faster than the other cars. The Tom's T020 MR2 is next in line on the chopping block. Now it was time to stuff the 355 to the gills with power and get revenge on Ford for Le Mans. The GT40 road car is still the car to beat, but the Lamborghini Ital-Design Kala took a convincing third place. Yes, this is pretty much the Need for Speed 2 update for Project A-Spec because the BMW Ital-Design Nazca is also in the mod now. The racing love of my life, the GT40 race car, is sacrificed once again. I hopped back into the Corvette and went to Seattle for 80s Cup Race 4. I think the next race I do, I'm going to try manual transmission since I'm getting a bit annoyed by gear shifts right before a corner. The Zaxspeed Capri is a pretty race car, but not one we can use. I decided to take a break, but I forgot to save my game, which means I had to redo the race at Seattle in the Corvette. Well, no big deal, and thankfully this time I remembered to save my game before selling the Zaxspeed Capri. After taking too much time to think about what to do next, I decided to upgrade the Paul Bunyan WRX for 4-Wheel Drive Challenge 1. We stayed in Puget Sound running the Seattle short course against the expected Golfs, S4s, and Lancer Evos. One legacy wagon in white gone, and I decided to buy into the 3000 GT line for the rest of 4-Wheel Drive Challenge. After completing the tune-up, I decided to practice driving in manual transmission. Finishing my practice laps, I was ready for the race. I missed a couple of shifts here and there, but that's because I'm not used to driving in manual. Oh, and the 3000 GT was too good. The Nismo 400R prototype is new to the mod, and I think it replaced the preceding model of the 400R. Anyway, wrong color. Now it was over to Laguna Seca for the finale of 4-Wheel Drive Challenge. My driving in manual got much more sloppy, with the corkscrew giving me trouble on both laps. However, the upgrades I gave the 3000 GT were extremely overkill, allowing it to fly off the line. This is one of the quickest accelerating cars I've ever tuned. The trophy of our spoils was the Audi Quattro rally car, which was added in the 1.2 update. What a legendary rally machine. However, rules are rules. I had enough of insanely fast turbocharged monster machines for the time being. It was time to slow things down. To recap, the new 355 is amazing. I'm forever cursed to get the Skyline silhouette in blue. I need to remember to save often. Manual transmission isn't that hard. And high-power turbo cars can become almost uncontrollable. As the old adage goes, I'd rather drive a slow car fast. It's time for both the Lotus Europa and Gary to shine. You know how some songs complain about not being able to get their cars out of second gear? Well, with Gary, I can't get him out of first gear. On the bright side, because Gary's so slow, I don't have to change gear often when cornering. I might adjust the final drive after this race in Seattle. And no, the Vitz is still not a K car. One Demio A-Spec later, and it's off to Tahiti again. Despite the improved acceleration, all the other K cars stayed fairly close. Except for the Suzuki Carry. I think a lot of the new cars in the mod must not have some AI difficulty flag attached to them since they were in a convincing last place. But what do I know about coding? Gary's work here is done, so it's time to get the Europa into shape, right after we sell the Copen concept. At Rome Short, the other K cars make the Europa look like the Ford GT40. This lightweight boat was overkill, but so goes Gran Turismo 2 logic. We got the Mugen Beat in red, but I'd rather not keep it because there's not much point in owning it, and doing Beat the Beat would be a waste of time. Gonna jump out of order here to do the 147 horsepower Nationals races, starting with the Japan Nationals at midfield. Despite having 145 horsepower, the Europa feels like it has more than that. No doubt because it's a Lotus with its low weight, therefore a good power to weight ratio. This race actually gave us a prize car, but it was one of the vanilla prizes moved around since it was the Toyota Celica XYR concept. Out it goes. I wanted a car that could fit the 197 horsepower niche, and wouldn't you know I picked one of the cars I covered on the channel. The ZZS was really squirrely, but that could be because of the uneven nature of Trial Mountain. That said, the ZZS was a blast to drive. I can tell you what isn't going to be a blast to drive, the Mugen Civic Fario. Now, I wanted to speed things back up a little, so I spent a huge chunk of money on the Momo Corsair Apex MR2 GT300 car. That way I could finish up MR Challenge and use it for GT300. Although it was more expensive than maxing out a Renault 5 or a stock Toyota MR2, I now had a fighting chance in the other racing events. After tossing out the TRD 2000 GT, it was time to knock out more 345 horsepower races, starting with Convertible Car Cup 2 at Grindelwald. Against a race car, it was easy pickings. This netted us yet another Toyota concept, which was also monochromatic. Next is 80s Cup 2 at Special Stage Route 5. The MR2 rockets off the line and vanishes into the night. The Mugen CRX Pro 3 is still out of place. Deep Forest for Race 3. I was running circles around them.
I'm not even winded!
Yet another Mugen Honda out of place. I really wanted to get the Skyline Silhouette in the canonical red, and I also wanted a bit more money, so it was back to 80s Cup 5 off camera to save you the repetition. And would you look at that? All is well. The Skyline Silhouette's trial will be trial by Trial Mountain. This is the first time I've ever driven this car in manual transmission, so it was a bit tricky to deal with the quick first gear and all its wheel spin. But I didn't push the car too hard and kept my cool. I think I might love Nissan sports cars more than any other sports car. The TVR Tuscan Speed 6 is our prize, but I'm fine without it. Over to midfield for Grand Touring Car Trophy 3. I think the minimap speaks for itself.
I'm a freaking blur here!
This nets us the Unicia Jex Skyline R33, and I think this is more of a white car than a red car, so it goes. Now armed with one of the best all-around racing cars, it was time to take a break and prepare for the you-know-where to save up for the you-know-what. Get ready to get down and dirty. To summarize, slow cars are fun to drive fast. The Tommy Kaira ZZS is a great car to toss around. There still shouldn't be a reason for tuned Hondas to be an 80s car cup, and if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need. Yeah, you know what time it is. It's time to take the Skyline Silhouette to Red Rock Valley for Gran Turismo All-Stars. Yeah! I keep forgetting it's always a rolling start. Anyway, the first lap is spent overtaking the BMW 840ci LM Edition, which is also exclusive to the mod. The next 4 laps are spent building a large gap over the others, giving the Skyline Silhouette an easy win and the TVR friggin' Speed 12. Sadly, we can't use it this time, but you know why we're getting this. It's $500K resale price. I felt like taking a stroll in Rome next, so it was off to Rome Circuit in GT All-Stars. Once again, the 840ci LM is in front, but this time we overtake it on the first set of corners and slip away. I hit a snag at the sharp right corner after the Coliseum on lap 4, but I know better than to keep tossing the car this way and that way with the gas held down. We earned the Tommy Kaira ZZ2, but we can't use it in this color. Oval track time! The Skyline Silhouette is still faster than the other cars on this high-speed oval. This nets us the new Aston Martin DB7 V12 TWR, which is not only new to the mod, but does not come in red. At Special Stage Route 5, the car really starts screaming at 7,500 RPM. The exhaust note changes. It gets even louder. We sell off the Mines R34 GTR and head off to Laguna Seca to finish up All-Stars. I'm really starting to understand this car very well, especially since I'm learning how to drive in manual. The corkscrew proved to be no problem this time, and we walk away with this red beaut. The Nissan R390 GT1 97 road car. Definitely keeping this. However, this meant I didn't have enough cash for the you-know-what, so I went back to MR Challenge 3 in the R390. Hot damn, this thing is quick! It beat the other MR cars with ease, but it handles a bit on the stiffer side. So, with the extra change from selling another GT40, I realized I was 25k short of buying the you-know-what after upgrading that car. So after running the same race again off camera to get a bit more cash, now was the time to buy the you-know-what. I'm talking about the Suzuki Escudo Pikes Peak version, arguably the fastest car in the game. And I'm getting sidetracked a bit. I browsed the used car lineups. I wanted to get the Mazda Speed AZ1 for the collection, but what would I use it for? Anyway, where was I? Oh right, time to win stuff in the Escudo. At the test course, the HKS Drag 180SX would have had me any other day, but this is the Pikes Peak Escudo. It shot off like a rocket, hitting 245 miles per hour at one point. We got the 180SX's brother, the Drag R33 GTR, and picked up another $250,000. While I'm here, I might as well finish Tuned Turbo No. 1 Cup. The Escudo is literally untouchable here. However, it suffers from crippling levels of understeer since it's a four-wheel drive car. Another HKS GTR. Deep Forest. I can't see for shit with this big wing, and I can't steer for shit. But that hardly matters here when everyone else is way too slow. And with yet another HKS Drag GTR, I'm hardly complaining about the extra cash. Because the Escudo was built to conquer dirt trails, and that is what we are going to do. Starting with Smoky Mountain South. By the way, the rally events are being played at 30 FPS because otherwise the ghost opponents bug out at 60. The Storia and 2 Deltas were no match for Monster Tajima's twin-engine Dirt Devil. Not much gained from these races other than money, but hey, I'm doing rally events. For the other events aside from Pikes Peak, I wanted to try and challenge myself by driving a car that wasn't the Escudo. I decided to refit Paul Bunyan into a rally car by giving it dirt tires and a few more upgrades. It wasn't enough. So I decided to buy the Citroen Xara kit car even knowing it was front-wheel drive. Even that was more capable than Paul Bunyan. I think it shows that either A, I don't do rally events enough to know how to tune for them, or B, a normal car can rarely compete against race cars. The last race at Smoky Mountain North actually gave a surprise car, the Impreza Rally Edition with a bonkers 571 horsepower. If I'm not mistaken, this is similar to the one Subaru used in a rare promotional tape for GT1, where the driver was an absolute troglodyte. Anyway, it's not red. Off to one of the forgotten tracks of GT2, Green Forest. This is one of the 2 tracks that would serve as the predecessor to Swiss Alps, the other being Smoky Mountain South. Unlike the South course, Green Forest has a bit more going on. It's got some sharp jumps and sharper turns. Not much of a problem for the Xara, but way more of a problem in the Escudo. Green Forest 2 gives us the Ford Escort rally car we squared off against, but I told the driver he could keep it. In the interest of time, I'm only going to go over the rally races that granted prize cars in the mod from here on out, and some physics mishaps. Nothing but blind corners at Tahiti Maze. Race 2 of Tahiti Route 3 gives us another yellow Stratos for the pile, and Race 3 gives us the fictional Toyota Celica rally car, but it's not majority red. Pikes Peak Hill Climb. The red RS200 in Race 1 got stuck after clipping a part of the hill and did not finish. He surrendered his car to me. For beating the Escudo's big brother, the Cultist Pikes Peak, we got the Speedway Motors Corvette Pikes Peak. Let me tell you, the A-Spec devs are making some real deep cuts in this mod. So am I. Against my equal, I had much quicker acceleration, but my rallying experience nearly cost me on the first third of the trail. And that got me the Toyota Tacoma Pikes Peak. Also new, and also not in red. Now going downhill. A bunch of spinouts and a new Peugeot 405 Pikes Peak. Still can't use it. Smoky Mountain North Reverse gives us a smoke in the form of the Marlboro Lancer Evo 6 rally car driven by 1999 WRC champion Tommy Mäkinen. While Marlboro liveries are among some of the most iconic in motorsport, smoking is still bad for you. Let's go take this Flying Finn's car out for a spin and finish off rallying at Tahiti Route 3 Reverse. While it's possible to send a car airborne, it's literally impossible to overturn it. Believe me, I've tried. Nothing going for Tahiti Route 3 Reverse, so that brings an end to the rallying diversion with little fanfare. So to recap, Gran Turismo All-Stars is always a rolling start, the Nissan R390 road car is quick, the Suzuki Escudo Pikes Peak is still one of the fastest cars in the game, something's wrong with the Ford RS200's pathing at Pikes Peak, smoking is still bad for you, and rally events are a fun but flawed diversion. Now it was time to get back on the road again. So I wanted to build an FR car that could make 443 horsepower. So why not go back to where it all started in the 93 Supra? I had more than enough credits to give it a try after my rally adventure. After giving upgrades to Supra Mayro, it was back to FR Challenge 2. No surprises here as Supra Mayro fired a mushroom and ran away with a lead. We're awarded with the Nismo 270R in one of GT2's beta colors, Mandarin Orange. Tasty. Hopping over to Deep Forest for Pure Sports Car Cup, the track is really bumpy and uneven. I think it might be a good time to look into suspension tuning if I'm bringing back Supra Mayro for GT League. This ZZ3 would have been nice a few races ago, but I'll still hang on to it since it's red. I was still missing an FR car that could hit 490 horsepower, so I'm gonna go change that. I'll go with the new Caterham 7 Superlight. While it's only got 192 horsepower stock, it weighs a little over 1,000 pounds. This thing's gonna be quick with upgrades. Let's see just how quick it is. Well, not quick at all from a standstill, but I think that'll be offset by further gear tuning and a revving start. My assumptions were correct, as the low end of first gear was slow, but it really took off after that thanks to its extremely low weight and superb grip. This car design was based on one by Lotus, after all. After getting rid of the Mazda Speed RX-7, there was one more power level I needed to fill in, and I think I have just the car to do it. The Mugen Prelude. The Prelude was given upgrades and a tune-up before facing off against convertible cars. If any of the new cars were an exception to being dead last, it would be the Panaz Roadster AIV. That aluminum Roadster stayed a bit too close for comfort in this race, and now I'm thinking maybe I should have bought that, or the Renault Sport Spider. Well, too late now. The A-Spec Miata gets the heave-ho, and we hop back in the MR2 to check off another 394 horsepower race, Luxury Sedan 1 at Rome Circuit. No drama here, just a luxury sedan among other luxury sedans. Out with the Accord Type R. I then moved to tuned NA car number 1 Cup in the 7 because there's no replacement for displacement. Autumn Ring gets us the lovely C-Spec Miata in blue. Grindelwald gets us the Weak Sauce Miata, except this time I can keep it. Laguna Seca gets us yet another blue C-Spec Miata. Now, in every GT2 run I've done up to this point, I've used cars that were purposefully made to troll everyone who watched it. I've used a Dodge Stratus with raised Vesta strawberry wheels, and I've also used a Dodge Intrepid converted into a funky yellow drag car. While I had a Subaru Forester in mind for this run's troll car, I thought, why not keep with the theme of cursed Dodge cars? Now it's the Viper's turn to inherit the Vesta strawberry wheels. At Route 5 for Luxury Sedan 2, I launched the car in second gear anticipating a wheel spin start, and I spent much of my time in second gear. I will say though, the strawberry wheels don't look too bad on the Viper. Though the Viper was a bit stiff, it took home the gold and allowed us to sell the handsome TRD Chaser. Next on the 493 horsepower agenda was Race 2 of Grand Touring Car Trophy at Grand Valley. So, the Viper doesn't have any wheel spin at launch, but it feels very heavy to drive. If I'm using this car again, I'm gonna give it more weight reduction. I know the Viper is an American car, but still. We can't keep the Chaparral 2D, so we throw the money from that into putting the Viper on a diet, and then giving it the rent-a-car racing modification because why not? Well, I'll tell you why not, because I've done every single 493 horsepower race in this challenge. 100k down the drain. Hopping back in the 355, let's finish the 591 horsepower events. At High Speed Ring for Luxury Sedan Cup, I kept the 355 in its stock wheels because they're perfect. If I was driving an F355 Challenge, then I'd spring for different wheels. The 355 gallops along and we sell off the R33 GTR Autech Nismo sedan. Now to close the top, pun intended, on Convertible Car Cup at Trial Mountain. Trial Mountain's uneven road and constant elevation changes proved somewhat problematic to the 355, as it bounced around when I didn't want it to. Despite that, I kept cool and won. Sadly, we can't keep the Dodge Copperhead LM. As much as I wanted to reuse the Corvette for Station Wagon Cup, I decided we should do it the way Polyphony Digital intended, so let's lock and load in the Mitsubishi Legnum Super VR4. At Rome Short, I don't think I've ever seen a Toyota Caldina in this game before. Anyway, the Legnum builds up a sizable lead, but the Caldina I was wondering about was hot on my tail. I think this generation of Mitsubishi Galant and Legnum look really handsome. It's almost like a modern Japanese muscle car, except that this has all-wheel drive and a turbocharger. After getting rid of the Subaru WRX STI wagon, it was time for some oval track racing again. Gee, I wonder if I'll win a tuned Honda Accord wagon. Oh look, there it is! Last but not least is Special Stage Route 5. The Legnum's got surprisingly good grip for a wagon of this length. We need more wagons in our lives, but that only happened if we never invented the crossover SUV. And there's your heated car discussion of the day. With the Stagia 260 RS removed from the garage, now was the time to hop in the little red Corvette. The second to last series of races we need to do before the championships is Super Touring Car Trophy. Race 1 in the Corvette was one of the more difficult races I've attempted in the entire run, not only because the cars were keeping up, but because it was my least favorite track in the game in Apricot Hill. But you know me, never not cutting. Chicanes are just a suggestion. Selling a 30th anniversary Camaro, I determined the Corvette wasn't the best car for this series and brought back the MR2. For race 2 at Trial Mountain, the MR2 fared better, but the other race modified sedans were hot on its 6. Except the Toyota Chaser. What happened there? Out with the Tom's Supra, and on to Laguna Seca. Now, the MR2 isn't cutting it with the Astra and the Megane. I need something with a bit more oomph, or a little less weight. I tried using the Caterham 7 after giving it a stage 3 weight reduction. No good. Ford RS200 with full weight reduction. That did much better thanks to its all-wheel drive. That said, it was a 2-second gap between first and second. And all that for a Super Turismo van. Deep Forest brings home a convincing win for the RS200 despite the occasional 4-wheel drive understeer. I'm just glad I didn't have to resort to buying the Ford GT40 yet again, despite how good it is. Next to get the axe is the Renault 21 Super Turismo car. At Rome Circuit we have little to no drama even in the face of the Peugeot 805 Super Turismo van. Leave it to Ford Europe to build some of the best homologation specials in the game. For finishing Super Touring Car Trophy, we get the BMW BAC M3 Super Turismo. But it's not red. Only 2 championships are left in special events, but there's also one new event in the mod that's going to have to get done before we take on the Gran Turismo League. To summarize the day's events, Supra Mayro came out of retirement, I sank too much money into a Dodge Viper with strawberry wheels, wagons are cool, Super Touring Car Trophy was fairly difficult, and Ford Europe made some killer homologation specials back in the day. New to A-Spec is Supercar Festival. Based on its iteration in Gran Turismo 4, it's supposed to be a difficult race series featuring production supercars. Based on that working knowledge, I have to choose my track weapon wisely for Deep Forest Reverse. I could spring for the Wiegert Vector W8 again, or I could try my hand at the Lamborghini Diablo-derived Vector M12, or I could go with the new Ferrari F40. I had a lot of choices and I didn't want to resort to the Escudo. At first I revived the Venturi Atlantique 400 GT, but it didn't stand a chance against a Vector W8, so I reset the game. I know it's a bit scummy to just reload the save rather than try and fail, but this is my playthrough, not yours. I know this will make up for my save scumming when I show you that I now have a Ferrari F40 making over 900 horsepower. But 900 horsepower is too much power for any mere mortal to control, especially with a rear-wheel drive car. Screw it, ain't nobody got time for that, we're using the Escudo. And I'm gonna have to drive it in the bumper camera because I can't see a damn thing with that massive wing. I really didn't want to resort to the nuclear option, but I was at my wit's end. I needed speed even at the cost of handling. I think for the next race at Rome Night, I'm picking something else because I need grip. The Escudo doesn't have grip because it's an all-wheel drive car and it's insanely fast. The Ital-designed Nazca C2 won't cut it because this one's not red, but it was worth a lot of money. For Rome Night, I switched over to the Nissan R390 road car because it was pretty quick when I tried it out. While it is quick, the Quaif, the first silver car, was the car to beat. Rome Night is seldom used in GT mode, so I'm not 100% familiar with this tight and technical track, especially driving in manual. It used to only be randomly accessible through one-make races and the event synthesizer. Anyway, I was more nervous in this race than even in Super Touring Car Trophy, mainly because I'm used to this game being too easy. But hey, I found some challenge to keep me on my toes. I also found another one of the NFS2 cars, the Lamborghini Ital-designed Kala. The Kala only comes in yellow, so sadly we can't use it. Last off was Autumn Ring. I had no room for error since I was now in the presence of the Jaguar XJ220, the Ford GT90 concept, and the Toyota GT1 road car. Thankfully, I committed little to no errors on track. However, I did notice that the grandstands on the second to last corner didn't render at all. I think I found an actual bug in this version of the mod, but it doesn't seem like one that can be fixed. Oh well, it didn't impact me winning the race. This got me the low-tech C1000 concept with its outlandish looks and bonkers horsepower number. Though I also couldn't keep this, it carried a massive 750,000 credit resale value, even more than the Speed 12. With Supercar Festival completed, it was championship time, starting with the GT300, but instead of picking the MR2, I also went to try out another new car in the mod. This is the Advance Auto Camaro that tried and failed in GT300 IRL, but I had to have it because America! Race 1, Grand Valley East. I remembered it was rolling starts for GT300. For a Camaro of this generation, I think the Advance Auto Camaro looks pretty good. If I'm not mistaken, this is another IMSA car that tried to compete in GT300 but ultimately ended in failure. Since engine failure isn't replicated in GT, we were all good in Race 1. Race 2, Laguna Seca. The Camaro has really good grip around this track. That's all I have to say. Race 3, Deep Forest. This Camaro just has great grip. It's not as good as something like the Lancia Delta Integrale Evolution, but it's well above average. Wasn't expecting that from an American car. Race 4, Midfield Raceway. An American car doing American things on a high-speed track. Race 5, this garbage. I'm glad this Camaro has grip, otherwise I wouldn't have attempted to cleanly navigate the chicane. Though I hate both this track and Apricots, the Camaro makes short work of it and we win GT300. Our reward is the Wed Sport Celica, which I wouldn't have used anyway. For GT500, my choice of car was obvious. Race 1, Laguna Seca. No issues here for the Skyline Silhouette, another cruise around my favorite track in the game. Race 2, Super Speedway. I think you know how this one goes. Race 3, Rome Circuit. The car jammed up on the walls on lap 2, but nothing else really happened. Race 4, Trial Mountain. The hardest part of this race was keeping the damn thing on the track. The Skyline had trouble around many of the harder corners, but fortunately not that much trouble. And you know we had to take a few jumps at the final chicane. Race 5, that garbage. In the past I've cut this track as much as my editing, but for once I kept cutting to a minimum and took the chicane like a man. Or person. GT500 is over, and we're awarded 200,000 credits and the Takata Dome NSX. So all in all, that's 900,000 for each race, the championship bonus, and the sell price of the NSX. With all the special events completed, it was time to finish the game. No summary this time, we're in go mode. Onto the Nationals and the final stretch of the game. For the remaining Nationals races, I'll be doing a lightning round based on the different power restrictions. 197 horsepower events and the lone 216 horsepower race will be done by the Tommy Kyra ZZS. The one 345 horsepower event will be done by the Caterham 7 Superlight. The only 394 horsepower event will be done by the Legnum. 582 and 591 will be handled by the Skyline Silhouette. 680 and 690 giggity horsepower will be done with the 3000 GT. And events with no horsepower limit will be a toss-up between the 3000 GT, the Skyline Silhouette, and the Pikes Peak Escudo. Italian Nationals 1 gives us a prize of the Lancia Rosso Martini 037 GT300 car. German Nationals 1 gives us the Porsche STP Taycan 911 GT3R GT300 car. Damn, that's a mouthful. UK Nationals gives us enough money for tea and crumpets. French Nationals 1 gives us the Renault Maxi 5 Turbo Rally car, which is also new. German Nationals 2 forces me to change my strategy and use the Camaro against the Ital-designed Nazca C2. I survived 3 laps with the Nazca to win the Mercedes-Benz CLK DTM prototype. Japan Nationals 2 gives us the Mitsubishi HSR concept. German Nationals 3 gives us a 5-lap battle for the BMW V12 LMR. Italian Nationals 2 at Rome Night gives me a reality check, so I buy the Alfa Romeo Ital-designed Shigera and give it its racing modification. Not happening. Then I try the Toyota GT1 road car. That's more like it. It was still a close race, but the GT1 proved to be the one. This gets us the JLOC Diablo GT1 GT500 car. French Nationals 2 gives us the Citroën BX Super Turisme. UK Nationals 2 gives us the McLaren SOK F1 GTR GT500 car. Japan Nationals 3 gives me a Panic Attack and the Toyota Super Silhouette Chaser. US Nationals 2 gives us the Chevrolet CERV-3, another mid-engine Corvette concept. UK Nationals 3 gives us the Aston Martin Nimrod NRA C2. US Nationals 3 sees us upgrading the rent-a-car Viper before remembering that race-modified cars are useless. So back to the Escudo. And that gives us the Chevrolet Camaro LM Edition, another exclusive car to the mod. Nationals are complete, so now it's on to Euro-Pacific League, starting over in EuroLeague. Race 1 is Apricot Hill in the Advanced Auto Camaro. It was a runaway for the Camaro, with the Renault Sport Spider Trophy coming in a distant second. And with how grippy the Camaro is, we don't need to cut corners. The Bitter GT1 is new to the mod, but is not usable to us. Next up is Grand Valley in the Skyline Silhouette. It turns out I missed the DTM memo, since I was up against 3 Screamin' Calibras and 2 Mercedes-Benz DTM cars. It's like I'm being chased by a swarm of mosquitoes. We shoo away the new Lister Storm GTL and think about whether or not to buy a new supercar. I say yes and bring back the Vector W8. Sadly, it's not a cheese wedge this time. At Rome Circuit, I need to make more adjustments to the W8 so it's not bogged down in first gear. What am I doing wrong? And why didn't I realize I could buy a turbo upgrade for the GT1? I feel like an idiot. So I paused to look up tuning to counteract all this understeer. After fiddling around with the suspension and utilizing the limited slip differential, I still couldn't crack the code. Next, I tried the R390. Stupid AI and your stupid railways! Okay. Time for a mental reset. I know this car can beat this race, I just need to adjust my driving style. So after making said mental adjustments and loosening up a bit, the R390 won after too many damn attempts. This gave us the Centura S99 GT1 with its amusing 3DFX livery. EuroLeague makes way to Pacific League, with our first stop being Midfield Raceway in the Camaro again. The Camaro's excellent grip allows it to outmatch the race-modified cars. From one IMSA expatriate to another, we get our hands on the Nissan FedEx 300ZX GTS. Let's test it out at Red Rock. Maybe Red Rock with no power limit wasn't the best choice, but I did it anyway. In another David vs. Goliath story, I outmaneuvered the Ford GT90 concept to win. Yeah, it had better straight line speed, but I used cornering, blocking, and downforce to my advantage. This nets us the legendary 1997 Toyota Castrol Supra. When am I ever gonna use this thing in a challenge video? So things were a bit dicey with the 300ZX, so I'm taking the safe bet and summoning the Escudo. I find it comical how it just rockets off the starting line. My planet needs me! Our penultimate prize is the original Mazda RX-7 LM edition from the first Gran Turismo. With all the other GT League races done, it's time for Gran Turismo World League, and you know I'm sticking to the Escudo for this. Race 1, Trial Mountain. Once again, the Escudo launches like a rocket off the starting line, but finds some issues in the corners due to its speeds and all-wheel drive, and also that massive rear wing blocking my view. Don't be surprised if you see me using the bumper camera in this series. Race 2, Laguna Seca. Been there, done that. Though I probably should have done a few practice laps so I didn't end up in the dirt on every lap. Thankfully, I was able to navigate the corkscrew without any hassle. Can't say that about some of the cars in my garage. Race 3. Apricot Hill. Though no longer my least favorite track, it's still one of the harder tracks to cope with. The hard corners at the start make the first lap a traffic jam, but sometimes you just gotta cut the track to get ahead. Wave as many black flags at me as you want, you can't stop me from cutting. Race 4, Rome Circuit. Every time I say when in Rome, something bad always happens, so I'm not going to say when in Rome. I'm going to say that I won the race. but I felt like I was driving on the edge, taking the long left at over 200 miles per hour. 200 miles per hour. This monster is more dangerous than any demonic S30Z. Race 5, Midfield Raceway. Like Rome Circuit, Midfield is where high-speed cars like the Escudo thrive. The car consistently laid down sub 1 minute lap times. If that ain't fast, I don't know what is. Actually, I do know what it is. It is the Gran Turismo World Champion. I know I said power isn't everything in the past, but in the case of the Pikes Peak Escudo, power is everything. The main game is done. On top of the large sum of prize money for each race and for winning the championship, we also get the requisite check the arcade disc message and a very special prize car. The McLaren Mercedes MP4 14 F1 car, driven by Mika Hakkinen on his way to becoming the 1999 F1 champion. If you couldn't tell, this car is not only new to the mod, but it's also not red. So, the run ends here. 26 cars, 1 hard reset, 3 soft resets, 9 million credits, and one hell of a way to celebrate my favorite color. Like many Gran Turismo playthroughs, I got another chance to try out cars that I haven't used before, or cars I didn't even know existed in the game. On top of that, the A-Spec mod introduced many more car options that are integrated almost seamlessly into this 26-year-old game. Jesus Christ, this game's almost as old as me. I got to try a lot of new things this time around. I played most of the game in manual transmission for the first time. I fell in love with cars that I didn't know I'd like. I got the Skyline silhouette in the correct color. I beat all rally events. I learned a bit more about extensive tuning. I learned a lot. That said, this challenge run didn't provide as much of a challenge as I thought it would. Sure, the A-Spec mod rebalanced some of the late-game races to make them harder, but I think the color red is a bit too common in all the game's cars. Less than half of the cars in the game with the mod can be had in red. Though, with red being my favorite color, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If anything, challenge runs like this encourage me to think outside the box. They prove that races can be won in many different ways. For instance, I didn't buy the GT40 road car at all, instead trying my hand at cars like the Momo Corse Apex MR2 or the undrivable 3000 GT. A lot of fun and chaos was had, even if most of the game's difficulty was still trivial. But it was only appropriate that the red car that could win it all was one of the fastest cars in the game. It's conquered Pikes Peak, and now it's conquered asphalt. It demonstrated that you can, in fact, beat Gran Turismo 2 with cars in my favorite color. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Which red car was your favorite to see? What's your favorite color? And what kind of challenge would you like to see me do next? Drop a comment below. Until next time, Squiddy the Kid signing off. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that Serious 909.